Home friends, a belated happy Sankranti in the new year to all of you. I know it's been a long time since I've done any videos. I was wrapping up my second novel, which is now done and dusted, and it's gone for editing. All going well, it will be published probably towards the end of this year. Now, I'll be more regular in bringing out videos. I'll try and bring out a video every week, all going well. So in this video, I want to talk about a very special temple I was fortunate to visit. This was in the first week of January this year when I visited Bhopal to see my father. This is the Shri Udayeshwar Temple, more popularly known as the Neelkantheshwar Temple, but the ancient name is Udayeshwar. Now, during my Bhopal visit, I had planned to visit several, historical places such as the Sanchi Stupa, Heliodorus Pillar, and the Bija Mandala Temple in Vidisha. Vidisha is approximately 60 kilometers from Bhopal, roughly an hour's drive. And Vidisha and Raisen districts, just to give you perspective, are extremely rich in historical and archaeological treasures. Now, I accidentally stumbled upon information about Udayeshwara while searching online for sites of historical and religious significance. Now, for some reason, I had this strong desire to visit the temple, but this was not very high on the agenda. As things turned out, which was probably Mahakala's wish, I ended up visiting only Udayeshwara Temple and Bija Mandala. Now, I didn't take any videos because I was mesmerized by the temple, and I just took a few pics, which I would put in the following slides. So let's move on to the next one. Now, this is a Google map of the surroundings of Bhopal to Udaipur. Now, the Udayeshwar Temple is in Udaipur, so this is not the Udaipur city of Rajasthan, but a village in Madhya Pradesh around 138 kilometers from Bhopal. So the road is pretty smooth for most part. It took us around 3 hours as we had to stop in a district place called Ganj Basoda for a very delicious breakfast hosted by Shri Praveen Sharma. Before I go on to the description of the temple, I will give you some interesting tidbits about happenings in the last 3 to 4 years around the temple. Shri Praveen Sharma gave me detailed information on how the entrance to the site, which I have marked in a solid red line, was encroached by local Muslims. So Praveen ji is a journalist and an agriculturist slash landowner in the local area. So what the encroachers had done was they had squeezed the road from both sides till there was space only for a single person to walk to the temple. What happened around 2021 was people realized this, and efforts were made by a group of activists, of which Praveen ji was a part, and Madhya Pradesh government officials as well, to clear the encroachment. To cut a long story short, after a hard fight, the road was finally widened, and you can see this in the Google satellite image. So I'll put a link to a video by Shri Vijay Mohan Tiwari, who is a journalist and Vice Chancellor of a journalism university near Bhopal, which goes into a lot of detail about the incident and also explains about other encroachments in Udaipur itself. Now, when I visited in January, the road was wide enough for a car to go right up to the western entrance. So this is the western entrance to the temple complex. And this is a kind of a informal parking space right next to it. Couple of things to note about the temple complex. The complex had Ashtamatrika, or temples dedicated to 8 mother goddesses. So Brahmani, Maheshwari, Kaumari, Vaishnavi, Varahi, Indrani, Chamunda, and Narasimhi. Of these, only a few broken fragments remain, and I'll point these out in this satellite image. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So out of 8, only 5 temples remain, and they are literally fragments, just pillars with a few slabs. I got a few photographs in the following slides. Now, traditional entrance to all Hindu temples is in the east. So this is the eastern gate. But after the Muslim invasions, the eastern entrance was blocked off, and currently only the western one is accessible. I will give you a quick overview on the history of the temple. So this is purely based on what I've read online and at the site. I am hardly an expert in this. So this was built by Maharaja Udayaditya in Vikram Samvat 1137, which translates to 1080-81 of the Common Era. Now, he was a relation of the legendary Raja Bhoja, possibly a brother, but it's not very clear from the sources. The Paramara kings, including Bhojaraja, they were incredible builders and built magnificent temples and water sources. Now, the enormous Bhopal Lake. So, if you have been to Bhopal, this is something that you must see, is a living testament to their water conservation efforts. And the Bhopal Lake, which is around 30 square kilometers, is actually a midget compared to a much larger lake which was built near Bhojpur. It's no longer in existence. So, Bhojpur is nearby Bhopal. And this lake covered an area of nearly 421 square kilometers. And when the fanatic Sultan of Malwa, Hoshang Shah, destroyed the retaining dam in 1443 CE, it took 3 months to break the dam and over 3 years to drain the lake completely. Now remember, this was 65,000 hectares covered by water, and the whole area became a malarial swamp for decades after the wanton destruction. The really special thing about this temple and what made me really happy is that this is the only temple from the 10th century in Madhya Pradesh where worship is still going on. And the more remarkable thing is that this is under Archaeological Survey of India, or ASI. Usually ASI's concept is to keep, Hindu artifacts or ruined Hindu temples as museum pieces, not as living places of worship. And you can see this in, an n number of examples all across India. The vibrations of this temple are incredible. Now, if you've been to ancient temples like Kolur Mukambika, Katil Durga Parmeshwari, in Karnataka, you will understand what I'm saying. So, any temple where worship has continued uninterrupted for thousands of years has incredibly strong vibrations, and this is one of those temples. So, incredible energy. Do visit this temple once, but visit as a devotee, not as a tourist. Remember, temples are sacred places, not tourist hotspots. This is a view of the southern entrance of the temple. I have put a snip of the satellite view in the top left hand corner just to give you an idea of the orientation of this complex. So, the entire stone foundation on which the temple complex rests, and you can see this as a big square shape in the Google map view, is known as the Jagati. So, this elevates the temple above the surrounding area, which essentially is mostly a plain except for a couple of hills. And something to notice is, I'm not sure if it's very clear in the image over here, the carving on the temple is incredible. And in the following slides, I have given quite a few images of the beautiful sculpture. But from the image, you can see that many of the sculptures have been badly damaged with heads, hands, and legs missing. Now, this deliberate desecration is a result of Muslim vandalism, especially by Muhammad Tughlaq, who was the 14th century Sultan of Delhi. And I'll speak more about, the attack on the temple and why it survived in the following slides. This building is known as the Vedi. It's probably where the citation was done here. It could also have been a Yajneshala used to perform yajnas. Now, there isn't much in terms of sculptures inside the Vedi, but it's a nice looking building with, ornamented pillars. And looking at the satellite view, so it's oriented towards the eastern end of the complex. So it's around here, and that's the eastern end. Okay. And this is one of the Ashtamatrika temples. As you can see, nothing much remains except for the pillars. I'm not sure if this is the one facing the western gate, or is this the one, kind of towards the southern gate, this one. So it's either one of the two. So this is another Ashtamatrika temple. And this is in a little bit better condition. As you can see, some of the sculptures are still kind of intact. And the foundation is in a little bit better condition than the other one. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. This is the eastern doorway with the Nandi visible. Now, this is not the original Murti of Nandi, which was destroyed by Muslims. The current Murti was installed by the Scindias of Gwalior. And it's a very impressive Murti and quite befitting the temple as well. So let's have a look at Sri Udayeshwar on the next slide. And this is the Shivalinga of Sri Udayeshwara. I got this pic from the Puratattva website. When we had darshan, there was a power cut, but the lights came on when we started doing the Abhishekam. So it's a very powerful and energized Shivalinga, which is why I would really encourage you to visit it once. And the brass cover on top of the Shivalinga was donated by Khandera Bappaji. So he was the general of Mahaji Shinde or Mahaji Scindia. in around 1783 of the Common Era. So the carvings in the Antarala. So this portion is which leads to the Garbhagriha itself is known as the Antarala, and very beautiful carvings. And I'll show you a detail on a couple of them in the next slide. So this is Nandi. Now look at the detail and the finesse of the sculpture. So this is in that part of the Antarala, which is almost the entrance to the Garbhagriha. So this image is recessed next to the Garbhagriha entrance. And there's another image. Again, I'm not sure what it is. If you know, please do put it in the comments. So this is again part of the Antarala, one of the pillars of the Antarala. I'm not sure what this image is, whether it is a Dwarpala or one of the Devatas. So please do put in the comments if you know what this is. And a couple of images from the exterior of the temple. This is Mahishasura Mardini annihilating the demon Mahishasura. You can see the buffalo sculpture at the feet of the goddess. And the next image is that of Kartikeya Swami or Subramanya Swami. And this is his Vahana, the peacock. So it's still worship, but the image, as you can see, has been quite badly damaged. And I think the face has kind of been eroded after, centuries. So very beautiful image on the exterior of the temple. And I'll show you a pic of the exterior of the temple next. So just a general pic. I just took this randomly. So even after centuries of damage, you can see that the surviving sculptures are still mesmerizing in their beauty. And as you can see, so the sculptures which are up to kind of your head level or which you can reach on a ladder, they have been quite badly damaged. But as you kind of go up the temple, it's still, the sculptures are intact and obviously they are very beautiful. So let's move on to the inscription next. The inscription which records the founding or the consecration of the temple, it's one continuous stone block. Now what I did was, I didn't have the presence of mind, so I took two separate images. So this is the left half of the inscription and this is the right half. Okay, which is why the images look a little bit disjointed, but you can find the complete image online. So the Sanskrit text and translation or transliteration of this inscription is available online. This was published in Corpus Inscriptionum Indicarum, Volume 7, Part 2. And it's available on Internet Archive, but the Sanskrit shlokas seem to have mistakes in places. So I'm using the transliteration done by Sarthak Singh and Guy Leavitt, which seems to be more accurate. I'll read out the key part of the inscription, which is on the left slab. Okay, so I do apologize if there are any mistakes in my Sanskrit pronunciation. So here goes. Swasti ekachatram karotu shmam udayaditya bhupatihi ityadyam siddhidam vedam shamsamah sarvato nrupa Shama Shirasi Bhutyasa Shama Brud Yashasa Ravi Sankranti Karanam Shlokoyam Pandita Shri Gruhavasa Sunoho Pandita Shri Mahipalasya Samvat 1137 Vaishakha Sudhi Saptami Srimad Udayeshwar Devasya Dhvajaroha Sampurnaha Mangalam Mahashrihi. So this is the inscription and I'll read out the translation. So this is the translation given by Sarthak Singh and Guy Leavitt on the website. From every quarter, O king, we recite the Veda that is primordial and the bestower of siddhis, so that the Lord of the earth, Udayaditya, may bring the earth under a single umbrella. Upon his head the earth prospers, thus he is renowned as the earth bearer. At the sun's passage, this is the verse of Pandita Mahipala, son of Pandita Gruhavasa, Samvat 1137 on the bright fortnight of Vaishakha, which is Saptami, completion of the raising of the flag of Sri Udayeshwar Deva. May there be auspiciousness, may there be great fortune. So this is the complete translation of the shloka. Now in the Corpus Inscriptum Indicarum, there is a mistake, or there seems to be a mistake, because where I have read out as Pandita Shri Gruhavasa Sunoho, they have noted it as Pandita Shri Shrungavasa Sunoho. So I think a little bit of mistake in copying the text, but otherwise it's pretty intact. So on the next slide, we'll have a look at the inscription of the Muslim invaders, especially Muhammad Tughlaq. Just give me a minute. So this is the Islamic inscription of one of Muhammad Tughlaq's officers. It's found in the temple courtyard in a orphaned portion of a wall. So there's nothing, to the left, right, or front, behind of that wall. So it's just kind of standing in the courtyard. And this inscription is on the top of what looks like a doorway. So I'll just read the translation of the inscription out. And I got this from online. So he who builds a masjid in this world, God Almighty builds for him a palace in paradise. This mosque was built during the reign and khilafat, which means viceroyalty, of sovereign of kings, Abul Mujahid, Muhammad son of Tughlaq. So this was Muhammad Tughlaq. May his rule and kingdom be perpetuated. The builder of this pious work is the humble Ahmad Waji. May God enhance his dignity in the year 737. So this is the Islamic year 737, which translates to roughly 1338-39 of the Common Era. So sometime around this time, the temple underwent, damage and desecration at the hands of the Muslim army of Muhammad bin Tughlaq. Now, the noses of many images of the temple walls were broken and faces were desecrated. However, the temple was left standing intact and did not face the fate of many others, which were kind of torn down to their plinths. Nothing. If you look at a lot of temples in Gujarat, Maharashtra, northern India, there's nothing except the foundation and a few pillars and broken images lying here and there. And that's the case of the Bija Mandala temple in nearby Vidisha, which is 60 kilometers. They're pretty much, it's mostly the massive foundation which is standing. Now, there's an interesting story related to why the temple was not completely destroyed. So, Muhammad Tughlaq had given his soldiers orders to destroy the temple to its foundations on the next day, whenever they had started the work of destruction or vandalism. But in the night, he had a dream that, the Devatas came to him and asked him not to do this. So the next day, he issued an order to kind of leave the temple as it was. Instead, what they did was they constructed a mosque, or they kind of occupied one of the temple courtyard buildings and converted it into a mosque, which seems more likely. And 2 screens were conducted. So the inscription which I have shown here, it seems to be of one of those screens. Now, when I'm telling you this, it seems to be quite far-fetched. But if you have some belief in spirituality or have got some spiritual experiences, you will understand that this is perfectly rational. And I will give you an example from the book written by Ibn Battuta. He was a famed so-called world traveler who was pretty much jihadi and a rapist as well. So he raped a Hindu woman, and he raped a married Hindu woman and forcibly kind of took her on a voyage, and she drowned. But anyway, he was honest in what he wrote. So he recounts an incident from the court of Muhammad Tughlaq, to which he was an eyewitness, where several yogis had come from I don't know where, and they were showing Muhammad Tughlaq, acts like levitation, so floating above the ground and a lot of different things. So this is from a very unbiased person who had no stake in the matter. Okay, and like I said, even though he was a typical jihadi, he was honest in what he wrote. So just something for you to think about. And let's move on to the next slide. So in this slides, it's just kind of to thank people who made this possible. So going from left to right, it's Shri Mahendra Bhavalkar of the Acharya Shankar Sanskrit Ekta Nyas. So he was the person instrumental in arranging this whole trip, coordinating with Shri Praveen Sharma, who is standing on the extreme right side. So that's my father, Professor Acharya Yadneshwar Shastri, and that's me standing there, and behind us is the Vedi or the Yagashala, and you can see the temple shikhara or spire in the background. Okay, and just moving on to the last slide. So I would like to thank all the people who made this wonderful trip and darshan of Sri Udayeshwar Mahakala possible. So Dr. Manish Pandey of Acharya Shankar Sanskrit Ekta Nyas, Shri Mahendra Bhavalkar, Acharya Shankar Sanskrit Ekta Nyas. So they're in the same institution, and even my father is part of that trust as well. It's a government of Madhya Pradesh trust. Shri Vijay Mohan Tiwari, who, as I mentioned, is a prominent journalist and the Vice Chancellor of Journalism University, and Shri Praveen Sharmaji, who is a journalist as well. It was his hospitality, and he pretty much took around the temple's complex and made the darshan and puja everything possible. So thank you very much, friends. Thanks for watching. I hope this was an informative video. I know I've kind of rambled on a bit, but I definitely think this is one of the temples you should visit. It's got a very different energy level. So that's all from me, friends, and like I said, I will resume the videos, so hopefully see you soon. Hari Om.